Hello, everyone. We're
Hello.
recording this on the 100th Christmas of Virginia K. Russell. This is Memories with Virginia, and she was born in May, and so her first Christmas, she wasn't even one yet.
And I don't remember it.
So let's start there. What are some of your favorite childhood memories of Christmas?
Well, as I was an older child, I remember that my father used to get the Christmas tree on his way home from work. He was very busy at the post office at Christmas time, and he got home late, but he got a tree, and he and my mother put it up and decorated it Christmas Eve, and we saw it for the first time on Christmas morning.
Was there an age at which you started helping with that?
I don't remember that. No.
So that's a lovely way to start Christmas.
Yes.
And did Nana make anything in particular for Christmas?
Well, I know we always got together with family. So some of the family came to our house for a Christmas meal, or we went to her brother's house, Harold's house, for a Christmas dinner. So the family got together then.
About how many people?
Well, it been the four of us and five of them, nine, or maybe more than that, maybe 12.
Some of your cousins?
Yes.
Which cousins would you usually see on the holidays?
Well, often would see Skippy, Audrey, and Billy, those cousins.
What do you remember as being some of your favorite Christmas presents?
Oh, I don't, I really don't remember that.
Do you remember any Christmases where you really wanted something and you didn't get it?
Probably some kind of toys I wanted. Wanted.
But you don't have a real memory of that.
No, I don't.
So we've kind of not addressed so far in talking about your childhood that the Depression era came in very soon.
Yes.
Um, did you, as a child, have a sense of doing without?
Yes, I remember that as far as clothing was concerned, my mother made all my clothes, and I had one pair of shoes. I had to wear those to go to school and to go to church on Sunday, and that was the, all I had because we couldn't afford any more than that.
Was that different from your neighborhood and your friends, or what gave you an awareness of that?
Well, the other children had the same problems that I had.
Mhm.
They just we didn't have very much to wear.
So, what was giving you an awareness of that? Were your parents telling you that? Were they used to having more?
Yeah, I guess so. And it was a question of the food that we bought. Didn't have as much money to buy food.
In Britain, they had food rations. Was that going on? Do you recall any of that?
I think they had rations, food rations. Yes.
But your family, even though they were in a city, never had to be in soup lines or anything.
No.
Were you aware of that?
No.
So that would have been more in the inner city,
Yes.
or your parents. Your church didn't participate in that and have.
I don't remember that they did.
And then when were you aware of things kind of freeing up? Do you remember at what age?
Well, I guess when I was a teenager, when I was going to high school. I remember.
That there was more money
Yeah.
or things? Did it make a difference in the way they celebrated Christmas? Had Christmases been pared back a lot when you were little?
I wasn't aware of it. Yeah. You see, I had enough to wear because my mother made all my clothes. I don't ever remember going to a store and trying on a dress to see if I liked it, because we didn't buy clothes off the rack. We went to the pattern department and selected a dress that I would like, and then we would go into the fabric department and see the fabric that I would like for the dress to be made, and mother would buy that, and at one point she would buy a little bit extra so that she'd have enough to make a dress for Marjorie too.
So it was a big deal if you bought a dress in a store.
Yeah, I don't remember ever doing that. No, my mother made my clothes.
As a child, you mean?
Yes.
At what point did you start? Do you remember the first time you went out and bought clothes?
Probably when I went to college. And we weren't the only ones she sewed for. There was her mother-in-law. She made dresses for her mother-in-law.
Oh.
But she had a particular kind of dress that she liked. And my mother had that pattern, and every dress was made off the same pattern. All my mother had to do was to buy the fabric, some kind of a print fabric, and her mother-in-law would like that, and she liked the way my mother made her dresses, and that's all she wore.
At the same time, I think Catherine brought up polio as an issue that you was going around when you grew up. Did you have, what was your awareness of that?
That children were afflicted with it, and that Jonas Salk invented the cure for polio. I remember that name.
Was getting polio a fear of yours in your youth?
No, it wasn't.
Or that your mother had for you?
I don't think so.
Okay. So you didn't know anyone directly?
No. Mm-mm.
What did you do for Christmas presents? Did you go to stores, or did you always make presents?
Usually we made them. Yeah. You know, my mother was not employed in any way that I can remember. She may have substituted as a teacher occasionally after Marjorie was in school, but she was very active in the Women's Missionary Society, and she was a speaker. She would often be asked to come to a church to give the sermon for the day, and I would often go with her. I remember that. And then I remember going to the Inasmuch Mission with her. That was a mission in downtown Baltimore for the homeless men, and the men could come in and take a seat in a large room with a lot of tables and chairs, and they could be seated to wait for their meal. But first they had to hear my mother give a sermon.
So that was an example of a soup kitchen.
Yes, that was.
So you did have how young would you have been when you started going with her to that?
About 14. She would take me along so I could play the piano for them, and I'm sure they loved it.
Did she also play?
She didn't play for them, but she did play the piano.
No, but I mean, yeah, for them. So that, and you said there they'd had to listen to the sermon before they got to eat?
Yes. Hmm.
And then what, did you just play and she helped serve? Or did you also help serving?
No, we didn't serve. They had people who served it.
Oh, okay. So what did she do there?
I don't remember that, but she probably just sat down someplace and waited until they were served. But once she gave her sermon, she was finished.
Oh, she gave a sermon.
Yes.
Okay. Did you two also eat there when you went there?
I don't remember that.
Okay. So we were talking about her playing before and that she would have to audition to play in church for Sunday school.
Well, Sunday school was a big occasion every Sunday morning. Everybody who went to Sunday school was in one big room, and we had an opening exercise, and we had read the scripture and sang hymns. So there had to be a pianist to play for the hymns.
Oh,
And
so it wasn't different ages of Sunday school. Everyone had Sunday school together?
yes, to begin with, the opening exercises were all together.
Oh,
And that's where you sang the hymns together. And we had several people who played the piano, and they all wanted to play for the service. So they had to audition, and the people in the room would decide which one would play the piano.
how did they decide?
I guess by applause.
So she did that some of the time, but I was surprised to hear from you the other day that once she got that unpaid position, she didn't just keep it. They had to regularly.
Yeah, probably every year they changed pianists because there was I guess the man who married Harold, the woman who married Harold was a pianist, so she wanted to play, and then
Harold?
Harold
Who was Harold?
was her brother,
Oh, okay.
and then Norman Bowder.
So your aunt.
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. What was her name?
Mary. And Norman Bowder played the piano too. So he liked to play because he wanted to show off. And he was the only man who played, the others were women.
Did you say that you then started to do that later on?
And then when I was proficient on piano, I was one of the pianists. Yeah. And then you see, after that opening exercises, they broke off into their individual separate Sunday school classes. So that there was a class for the young married people back in a section that had closing sliding doors. They could be in that room. And then the women's class was over in another area of the room, and the men's class was in another area, and then the high schoolers had another section of the room. But each age division was in a different section of the room for their individual lessons.
Now, when I was talking to Nikki after she had a couple singing performances, she told me to thank you for giving her the performance gene. But I was wondering how far that went back. We were talking about your mother playing piano, performed, and remind me again where she studied.
She studied with a woman who taught at Peabody. So she didn't actually enroll at Peabody, but her teacher taught at Peabody.
But not your piano teacher.
No.
A different piano teacher. And is that because she had already studied? So she was at a higher level?
I don't know. I don't know when she started to take piano lessons.
I was surprised that you told me you had a baby grand growing up.
After my parents bought the house where his mother had lived, then there was enough room to have a baby grand, and we did.
That would have been a big investment.
Mm-hmm. It would.
But your parents bought that.
Yes, it
For
was
sure.
there.
Yeah. So then I had asked, do you have any memories of your mother practicing at home, and when would she have done
Yes,
that?
I remember her playing the piano quite often, my father singing. And when they did that, I just crawled under the piano to listen to them.
At what age?
Oh, it would have been 7 or 8.
So, so did you want to play because you saw her doing it a lot?
I guess so.
Do you remember?
Yeah. And she would often say to me after we had supper, "Well, Virginia, you can either help with the dishes or you can practice." And I said, "I'll be glad to practice." So then my father would take my place in the kitchen and dry the dishes.
Oh, so other than playing in church, did your mother play at any other places?
Not that I remember. No.
And then I said, so if the gene went back to her, the performance gene, who in the previous generation would have had that?
Well, I guess you consider being a preacher. Her father was a preacher, so he liked to get up in front of people every Sunday and tell the story.
Do you know much about the generation before him? Were there any musicians or
No,
preachers
I
in the
don't know.
generation? Did he come from a preaching family?
Not that I remember.
And then how about on your father's side? What do you know? Were there any musicians on that side?
No. I say no, but there might have been, because when Marjorie wanted to start playing the violin, someone on his side of the family gave them a violin. It had belonged to them, and they just gave it to my father so that Marjorie would have a violin to use.
So they must have been in touch enough to know that she was wanting to play
Yes,
violin.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So someone on that side of the family had some music, but you don't. Is that because you just didn't know that side of the family as well?
Also, yes, but they weren't as musical and as outgoing as my mother's side of the family.
Were they raised a particular religion? Papa's family, his extended family?
Were they what?
Raised in a particular religion.
Well, I don't remember. I know that after my father came back from the service, he started going to the Salem United Brethren Church, and that's where my mother and her family were going. And I don't think anybody else in his family went, but he did. He attended there.
Okay. Went to that church, or you don't know of them being particularly religious?
I don't think they were.
Okay. But obviously Nana's family was. Were they all involved in that religion? What was her father a preacher of?
United Brethren Church.
Oh, he was. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Skippy and all of them, were they United Brethren
Yes.
too?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When did you switch over
To what?
to Methodist?
When there was a merger of those religions. The United Brethren merged with the Methodist, and it became the United Methodist Church.
So we started by saying that this is your 100th Christmas. Do you have any Christmases that stand out in your memory over time?
No, not particularly. It, mainly it was the family get-togethers at Christmas time. We always had somebody in the family hosted the rest of the family for a Christmas meal.
How about as you got older? Any particular Christmases that stood out?
No, I don't think so.
I know for me it was always going up to Ohio for Christmas that really stood out. But did you and Marty try to have most of your Christmases together?
Well, we often did. We often got together for Christmas.
So, do you ever feel that having lived to this age, do you ever feel that you kind of knew what the rules of life were and what you were supposed to do, and that the rules have all changed now?
No, I think they probably just changed a little as we got older. You know, you just learn to live with it. If there's any change, you learn to live with it.
I know I feel bombarded regularly through the television I mean, of things that have changed. So that must be magnified for you.
Through the television, you mean?
Yeah, through
Yes.
watching television of how much has changed.
Yes. Whereas it used to be radio, that was so important in my life. In our home where I grew up, my father had a chair that was between the front door,
You can take a
between the front door and the steps going upstairs. So he had to go right by him if you wanted to go up the steps. But he had his radio right there, so that as soon as he sat down in his chair, he turned on the radio to get the news.
So did you always have a radio growing up? Or was that something that came in your youth?
No, we didn't always have a radio. Mm-mm. No.
Okay. So you went from the radio, and then did you sit around and listen to radio programs as a family?
Yes. And then my father wanted to listen to the news, but it came on right at dinner time. And we said, please don't have the news on at dinner. We can't talk, and it's too disrupting, too disturbing to hear the news at dinner time.
So when did he get to listen to the news?
Before or after.
So there'd be another broadcast. Yeah. What kind of shows did you all listen to together?
Jack Benny, Horace Heidt and his three trumpeters, and
Oh, they had their own show.
they had their own show, and they had Bob Crosby and Bing Crosby. They had their orchestras that put on a show on the radio.
So no kind of serial shows like The Shadow or
Oh
things
yes,
like that?
yeah, they had those too. Mm-hmm.
But did you tend to listen to those?
Yeah, we listened to those. Mm-hmm.
And do you remember at what point they got a television? Were you still living with them then?
No, I don't think so. Mm-mm.
So when did you get your first television?
after I was married. Yeah. Black and white.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you got your first color television?
No.
That wasn't as big of a change from black and white to color as it was from radio to TV.
Yeah.
So going back to Christmas, did you have any particular Christmas traditions, like Boxing Day traditions, or um, you'd go to church? Was your church very large?
No.
So what were did they do the lesson and carol services? What was normal Christmas services there?
Well, just have the choir sing some special music for Christmas.
And how big would the choir be?
Oh, probably about 20 in the choir.
Were you always in the choir?
No.
Oh, you weren't.
No.
So you weren't in the choir growing up?
I don't think so. I was too young.
Okay, what about when you were older? In your teens?
Well, I sang in the choir then. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
About how many would be in the choir?
Well, as I remember, it was around 20.
20.
Mm-hmm.
And were their services very much the same as Methodist in terms of how they celebrated Christmas services?
Sure. Yes. Uh-huh. United Brethren was very much like the Methodist Church and the Evangelical Church. That's why they merged, because they were so similar. Yeah.
So did you ever, in your youth, get involved in leading things at church?
I remember being in plays. We had a small stage in the room where we had our Sunday school, and they would put up curtains so that people could come from the children's room, walk from there over to the stage and not be seen because they'd be behind the curtain. And I was in some of those plays.
Those would have been Christmas plays?
And religious plays, yes. Mm-hmm.
And then how did your family traditions grow and change around Christmas? When you were little, did they have lights yet for Christmas trees? Or were they still putting candles on trees?
I think they had lights.
They had lights.
Yeah.
All of your memory, they
Yes.
had lights. What else about things like that with decorating for Christmas? Candles in the window. Did you use real candles for that, or those were? I know later on we used the electric bulb candles.
That's what we had. I don't think we had real candles.
Oh, but you did have that?
Yeah,
That's
we
something
did.
your parents did?
Yeah.
Did they ever do any outdoor decorations?
No, because the homes were connected. You didn't have an individual house standing by itself that could be decorated because it shared a wall with the house next to it.
Mm-hmm.
And an interesting fact, not so much Christmas, but when my father got a car, well, of course, he drove us every place we had to go. And we'd come back, he would drop us off at home. And then he would drive the car 2 blocks around to where the garages were located. and put the car in the garage, then he'd have to walk back home because it wasn't allowed to keep your car on the street overnight.
Did you have big Christmas parades in Baltimore?
I don't remember.
You don't remember ever going to them?
No. I remember going downtown to look at the store windows. There'd be Hotel Cone and Stewart's and the May Company, and each store had beautifully decorated window with the Christmas theme, and people would go downtown just to look in the windows at those stores.
So you didn't go in to shop, you just went to see the
I went
windows?
to see the windows. Hmm.
Well, if you didn't go downtown, do you remember any other kind of Christmas parades?
No, I don't remember it.
How much of that is, do you think, because your family was so wrapped up in rehearsals and preparations for church?
And what about it?
Do you think you might have missed some things like that because your family was so involved in the church preparations for Christmas?
Maybe. Yeah.
Any other particular, before, as we wrap up, any particular Christmas memories or things you want to say to our listeners?
No, I think we've covered most that I can remember. Hmm. Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.